yourself intelligently before we get to what counts.
Fourth of 6 heats, lane number 6 is Carolyn Prevost, a woman who has won 11 national championships in 4 different sports.
One of the best athletes, just overall athletes that we have in competition, both men and the women. She can also pull some weight off the floor. She's going to need a bounce back event after test 1 this morning, and she was looking forward to it. I talked to her earlier about how she's going to approach this, and she just says, listen, I've got some work to do, and I'm ready to do it.
Prevost finished 22nd in test number 1 as we are underway with the 5 ring complexes. And if you have been watching, you are allowed to break these up.
You can, and you either do that to save your grip, hanging on to the rings for a toes to ring into a muscle up, and then that extra dip at the end after you finish the dip for the ring muscle up. So we basically got 2 hanging movements, 2 pressing movements. And when you look at this, there's a lot of different styles that you're going to see based off an athlete's skill and ability. Some are good pullers, not good pressers. Some are good pressers and not good pullers. Some are bad at both. Some are good at both. And as they navigate through that complex, once we get to this portion of the test, it's 20 total pistols. We'll do 5 on one leg, advance 5 on the next, 5, 5. Each set must be done without the foot coming down, or that single rep will not count. So if you do 4 reps and on the 4th rep before you finish you put the foot down, it's 3. They have to start over from that number, not from 0.
Carolyn Prevost was one of the first women to get to the single leg squats as she moves on to her 4th and final sets. Calissa Lang and Roran Scott. Roran Scott's on the far left and Calissa Lang in lane 3. And after calling nothing but team events, this floor looks
yeah,
downright
it's kind of nice, right? You only got 10 people to talk about. And Shawnee, look at what we have here is that this is where the reps count. Everything else is a numerical buy-in, basically, is that we're not counting scores until we get to the burpee box jump overs. You're not allowed to use your hand on the box. You have to at least land on it, hop off, step off, whatever you need to do. You can't put the hands on the box or on your legs. And we have a minute left in here, so we have an interval style test coming off that long, grueling test this morning.
Right now, 5 women on those burpee box jump overs, and as Chase mentioned, these are the reps that count in your score. Everything else is just a buy-in.
Now look at Caroline Prevost in the center lane. She's in the green long sleeve. Watch how she's getting up and down from the floor. There's a reason for this. This burpee is going to tax your triceps and your chest and shoulders, which you need for the ring dip. So watch, she'll come down to the floor, crawl up, so that's gonna limit how much she pushes from the floor. So the technique here is to try to limit how much her arms come into play with the burpee, and getting those knees up allows her not to press as much of her body weight with the ruck from that push-up press position.
They advance that box every 10 reps. Now, Prevost was the first one to advance her box. Roran Scott and Calissa Lang towards the bottom of your screen.
Rest. 1 minute.
Let's go down to Mike Arsenault with more on Carolyn Prevost.
Most difficult portion of this test with the ruck on their back. She said it's not an issue with the toes to bar. The biggest issue is on the transition of the muscle up, because all the weight's on the back and you have to force yourself forward to get into the dip position. Also on the burpees, at every single rep you notice that pretty much the rep is hitting, or the ruck is hitting the athletes in the back of the head. So that's something you're gonna have to deal with throughout the entirety of this test. But look again for that transition on the muscle up to be the most difficult part in terms of how the ruck will impact these athletes here on test number 2.
One thing we just saw, building off what Mike was talking about, the tightening up of the waist strap before we get to the rings that we just saw right there, is that's going to limit how much that bag moves around. Though when you get to, say, the single leg squats, having some freedom of the bag, not squeezing on your diaphragm, you'll probably see them loosen up the straps going from movement to movement.
Lauren Scott, who you're looking at right now, unofficially racked up 18 reps in the first round. She's one up on Prevo. That's unofficial. That's by the count that we're looking at on the floor.
Well, here's what's important about that. In the event of a tie on total reps, Sean, the tiebreaker is the total number of burpee box jump overs you do in round number 1. So if you tie at, say, 45 reps at the end, if she gets 23 and the other athlete gets 22, she's going to break that tie. Lauren Scott, I mean, talk about body weight advantage. She's about 5'1", so you know, ROM is in her favor when it comes to the single leg squats.
And she is way out in front here, almost through her first 5 reps before anyone has even finished her complexes. Here comes Callista Lang and Molly McGrath in lane 7. And down to lane 10 is Lindsay Porter. Porter from not far from here, crossing Clearwater.
Lindsay Porter has that gymnastics background that she did between basically the ages of 5 and 14, but as you can tell, it's like a lot longer limbs to work with than we saw Roran doing. But one cool thing about this is that her dad coaches her. Her dad has been coaching her since about 2009, and actually she trains out of the affiliate that her father opened. So.
And Lindsay Porter has competed as a teenager at the CrossFit Games. Finished 3rd in the 14 to 15-year-old division in 2015, and then was 7th in 2017 in the 16 to 17-year-old division.
Now, if I'm looking at it correctly, I think Roran Scott has had some background or experience in, I believe it's like the Florida League grid. It's still a thing out here in Florida, and it's a big thing. And why does that matter? Well, that competition has a lot of odd gymnastics tests on the rings and complexes and things like that. So maybe her background there is actually showing up to play a little bit with this ring complex.
Lauren Scott, unofficially 26 reps completed, and she is way out in front. Carolyn Prevo creeping up as well. She's on the upper right-hand portion of your screen in a long green shirt, center screen.
10 seconds.
And you mentioned just how good of an athlete she is. I mean,
Look at the list. I mean,
just
I'm looking at your,
through her
I'm looking at
accolades
your
here.
computer screen right now.
Academic All Big Ten, All WCHA Academic, All Team, 2011 NCAA Frozen Four All Tournament Team, and there's many more after that. Mike, what do you got?
Well, Chase, I'm just looking at all these athletes with their form on the single leg squats, and everyone is a little bit different because, of course, everyone's levers are a little bit different lengths. So for the people watching at home, is there a certain technique everyone should be trying to emulate, or is the most important part of the single leg squat is keeping your foot on the ground, keeping that heel down to protect the knee?
It's a great question, and the first question I ask any athlete is, how's your ankle flexibility? Because if it's not as good as that is, then it's not really going to matter, and you really play to your mobility purposes. And it's actually a very important part of this test, is that the ruck is going to, I would say, expose your positions on the single leg squat. So if you have, say, some mobility limitations or poor movement quality, that's what the ruck is going to do to a lot of things, especially when it comes to those single leg squats.
Roran Scott unofficially has 33 reps completed. The score to beat was set in the prior heat. Emily Baroth put up 38 reps. Final round here.
What Scott's doing is she's doing a lot of unbroken sets that we really haven't seen that much up until this point, but what she's going to do is she's utilizing the swing she's getting from the toe to rings to aid in getting back and getting over the top of the rings for the muscle up. Now what you can do is you can break up the complex. So she did 1 toes to ring. One important thing for this, especially with this pack, is that you want to try to catch high on top of the ring. So I'm talking gymnastics, so I can say catch. I can say catch on this one.
Coach Bergender's not going to come after you.
Dave Durante said I could say catch. I cleared it. But receiving high or catching higher on the rings is going to allow you to use less energy on the dip portion. You see a lot of these deep dips, right? We just saw that on the right side of your screen. Is that is going to smoke your shoulders. But hey, if it's your last one, it's your last one. You might as well do the best you can.
Yeah, Molly McGrandy, Lindsey Porter down in lane 10 at the upper right-hand part of your screen. And Callista Lang were the first women off, and Roran Scott is running into some trouble here.
This thing, she's been in a lot of big complex sets and has looked very good, but there is a certain tipping point of absolute failure when it comes to these gymnastics movements on the lockout or the turnaround because of this.
I'm not sure she was able to get credit for that rep, not maybe all the way locked out, but this is where the trouble started, not able to get through.
And as you said, there's 2 major components of this. You've got the pull from below the rings to get on above, and then the dip out. And with the ruck, that pull can be very limited.
But Callista Lang, Carolyn Prevost, and Lindsey Porter are onto their box jumps. Roran Scott, who's now just getting off the rings, is our leader, 33 reps unofficially, and Callista Lang and Carolyn Prevost are cutting into that. 38 reps is the score to beat.
And Lang coming into this, she wanted to see something like high-skill gymnastics, so she's getting what she asked for.
30 seconds to go.
Roran Scott now on the left side of your screen, just trying to get through these single leg squats.
You see Prevost change up her technique. Prevost on the right side of your screen, not doing the step up thing anymore from the knees. She's trying to speed it up, right? We don't need to save anything else at the end of this.
10 seconds.
The final reps here. And Callista Lang at least has 40 done, so she's gonna be your new event leader, depending on what Carolyn Prevost did. Prevost in the back there was creeping up, but I think Callista Lang, judging by that reaction, is going to have our top score.
What a way to go for it.
Looking at the placard on the floor here, her total is 41. And I have yet to see an updated total for Carolyn Prevost. But 41 reps.
29.
As she and Prevost had their boxes in that 40 to 50 range. And this is what opened the door for Callista Lang.
And it just looks like the grip fatigue there. Now Prevost, I think her and Lang, they moved their box just about at the same time into this last section. She only had a couple seconds left to try to clear the box entirely.
And it looks like, judging by that, I think maybe Lang edges her out by a rep.
And that's the thing, that's rep 1, that's rep 1. So it looks like Prevost a rep ahead, and they may have tied. If
we'll see.
Because they were on either side of the box, but that happens. That can happen.